Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into Charles Koch's book, Good Profit, and it poses a really fascinating question. What if most companies are chasing the wrong kind of profit? We're going to break down the management philosophy he says is the secret sauce behind one of the biggest corporate growth stories in history. So let's just dive right in with a really big question, something that gets to the very heart of how we think about business. Is all profit created equal? I mean, really think about it. If a company makes $1 billion, does it actually matter how they did it? Well, according to Charles Koch, the answer is a resounding yes. It matters a lot. In fact, his entire business philosophy is built around this one specific idea he calls good profit. And he argues it's the only kind of profit a business should ever be chasing. So what exactly is good profit? Well, it's not just about the cash you're left with at the end of the day. Koch defines it as profit that comes from creating real superior value for your customers. And you have to do it while using fewer resources and acting with complete integrity. It's about making people's lives genuinely better. And when you put it side by side with what he calls bad profit, the difference is, well, it's night and day. See, good profit comes from a totally voluntary exchange. It's a win-win. You make something great, and people are happy to pay you for it. Bad profit, on the other hand, that's the stuff that comes from, corporate welfare or gaming the system. Think special government favors or pushing for regulations that hurt your competition. It's about taking value, not creating it. Okay, so that's the big idea. But how do you actually do it? How do you build a whole company that consistently generates this good profit? Well, Koch's answer is a system he spent decades refining, and it's called market-based management. You'll see it called MBM. You can think of this as the actual engine that makes the whole good profit philosophy run. And the results? I mean, the numbers he points to are just staggering. He credits this MBM framework for growing Koch Industries from around $21 million to, well, over $115 billion in revenue. That's not a typo. For him, this isn't just some abstract theory in a textbook. It's the formula that actually worked in the real world. All right, so let's pop the hood and see what this MBM thing is all about. It's not just one single rule. It's more like a blueprint for success, and it's built on 5 key pillars or dimensions that are all supposed to work together. Yeah, you can really think of these 5 dimensions as the company's operating system. They are vision, virtue and talents, knowledge processes, decision rights, and finally, incentives. Each one of these is a crucial piece of the puzzle for creating what Koch calls an environment of principled entrepreneurship. So let's break them down. First up is vision. This is the company's North Star. It's about making sure everyone, and I mean everyone, is pulling in the exact same direction, focused on creating real long-term value, not just hitting next quarter's numbers. Next, number 2 is all about the people. It's virtue and talents. And this is huge. Koch's philosophy is that you've got to prioritize character and integrity above all else. His take is, if you have to choose between someone with amazing talent and someone with amazing virtue, you pick virtue every single time. Because a brilliant person without integrity, that's not an asset, that's a ticking time bomb. Dimension 3 is knowledge processes. This is all about breaking down those walls between departments, fighting against information silos. The whole goal is to create a culture where knowledge is shared freely and openly so that everyone can learn from what works and from what doesn't. And then, crucially, turn those lessons into action that creates value. Okay, number 4 is a really big one. It's called decision rights. And this is all about empowering your employees by giving them real ownership and accountability in their roles. It's designed to make them think and act like entrepreneurs for their own specific part of the company. It's basically the opposite of micromanagement. And this principle, it's designed to solve a classic problem in economics called the tragedy of the commons. The idea is simple. When something belongs to everyone, it effectively belongs to no one, and so nobody takes care of it. By giving people clear ownership, these decision rights, you sidestep that whole problem. And this quote from Aristotle really just nails the psychology behind it. Men pay most attention to what is their own. They care less for what is common. It's just human nature, right? When you feel like you truly own something, you put more heart, more creativity, and more effort into making it succeed. And the 5th and final dimension that ties this whole thing together is incentives. This is where the rubber meets the road. In the MBM system, your pay isn't just based on your job title or how long you've been there. It's tied directly to the actual value you create. This way, every single employee's interests are perfectly aligned with the company's main goal, generating that good profit. But look, a system like this sounds great on paper, right? But the real test is how it holds up in the real world. And for Koch Industries, this MBM system wasn't just cooked up in a nice, clean boardroom. No, it was forged, and I mean forged, in the fire of some pretty painful and very public failures. Yeah, back in the mid-90s, two major events really shook the company to its core. First, a compliance crisis, where they got into serious legal trouble over false environmental reports, a total breakdown of that virtue dimension we talked about. And then a pipeline explosion that tragically killed two people, which was a devastating failure of their knowledge processes. I mean, these moments proved that just having principles written down on a piece of paper is totally meaningless if you don't actually live them every single day. So these disasters, they really forced the company to put their money where their mouth is and to live by the words of Charles's father, Fred Koch. They had no choice but to use that adversity as a blessing in disguise, to figure out where their blind spots were, and to rebuild their whole approach with a much stronger commitment to these principles. And one of the biggest things to come out of all that pain was a brand new, totally uncompromising standard for accountability. They actually call it 10,000% compliance. The math is simple. 100% of your people have to be 100% compliant 100% of the time. The message was clear. There is absolutely no room for error. So, okay, we've gone through the philosophy, the 5 dimensions of the framework, and the really tough lessons they had to learn. So what's the big takeaway here? What does this all really boil down to? You know, it might all just come down to a really simple but profound idea about respect. There's this story about an early Coke leader, Sterling Varner, who got furious when he heard his employees joking about how they'd outsmarted a customer. And his point was simple. Our customers are our friends, and we don't make fun of or laugh at friends. That really captures the whole spirit of it. Business isn't a game where you're trying to beat someone. Ultimately, the whole philosophy of good profit is arguing that the real point of a business isn't just to rack up dollars. It's to be a principled entrepreneur. That means creating a system where you're actually helping people improve their own lives through exchanges that benefit everybody who's involved. And so that kind of leaves us with one last big question to chew on. We live in a world that is just obsessed with quarterly earnings reports and stock prices, right? But what if the real bottom line isn't a number on a spreadsheet? What if it's the total value you create for other people? What would our world look like if that was how we all measured success?